Mitch Kupchak cooking at the NBA trade deadline. He dealt Terry Rozier for a first-rounder a couple of weeks ago. Today, it's Gordon Hayward and P.J. Washington on the move. All told, the Hornets receiving back a first-round pick, a pair of second-round picks, and 5 total players. Joining me now, Locked On Hornets host Walker Mehl. Walker, I think Kupchak should have a show on the Food Network at this point, the way he's cooking today. What does today do for the Hornets in the long term?
It moves to a different era of Hornets basketball. We get to turn the page from a core that had been here for so long, and we can include Terry Rozier in on this, even if he wasn't dealt on trade deadline day. The fact that you move off of Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, and P.J. Washington, those 3 guys have been here for a while. They were a part of the play-in team that got back to that tournament twice, and got blown out a couple of times, and also had the 1 year where you finish above 500. But it just transitions into a different era of Hornets basketball. You still have LaMelo Ball. We'll see about Brandon Miller being the guy. Is he the lead dog? Is he going to work in tandem with LaMelo Ball? And then we'll see about Miles Bridges, who also is still here after deadline day, and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason. But you move off of what was a lot of minutes that were logged with some of those guys in the core, and Mitch Kupchak, even if he's not going to be here in this next season here at Nick, I mean, even if that's the case, Mitch Kupchak is dealing and doing a good job, in my opinion.
All right, we'll start with the blockbuster of sorts. P.J. Washington to Dallas for Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a lightly protected first-round pick. What are your thoughts on this move?
Oh, people that know me and have heard my analysis on P.J. Washington know I was always a P.J. defender, and because I thought he was a pretty good defender. And maybe there was some of the bad defensive rebounding numbers that showed up again this year. Like, he's just not a great rebounder. But the fact that P.J. Washington, somebody that I thought should get some real value in return, did more than I thought. Lightly protected first from Dallas in 2027, and you get Grant Williams in return. The money, the contract is totally fine. You bring Seth Curry to the Charlotte Hornets organization, which the Curry relationship there is fun for fans that go out there and watch them at the Spectrum Center. I think getting that lightly protected first-round pick is huge, and Grant Williams, who is a P.J. Washington light, if you will, who can go out there and defend, and it just didn't work out during his time in Dallas, like the 40 games, the close to 50 that were logged. It wasn't a long time. But even with what my analysis is on PJ, him being a good basketball player in this league, I didn't expect him to get a lightly protected first. A guy like Grant Williams, who I think is useful. And even if Seth Curry is somebody that gets traded quite a bit now and has played for a bunch of different teams, he certainly can still shoot. So I really like that deal for the Charlotte Hornets. And I think Mitch Kupchak held the Mavericks' feet to the fire, because Dallas is pretty desperate to remain in contention when you have that star-loaded backcourt in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. You can't just be hanging around in the play-in tournament and not doing anything to make your team better. They did that today. They tried to in trading for P.J. Washington, and they were willing to give up a lightly protected first. That's a big deal for the Charlotte Hornets.
All right, Gordon Hayward, who missed over 40% of the Hornets' possible games on his 4-year deal here, he is off to OKC. We could speak for an hour about the 4 years that Gordon Hayward spent here and where we stand on it. But an interesting return, 2 second-round picks. But players Tre Mann, Davis Bertans, and Vasilija Micic, how can those guys help Charlotte's bench and rotation immediately and going into next year?
So if we're looking at strictly the players here, Tre Mann is the guy that you're most excited about. Just couldn't get any run with the Thunder because OKC is so talented, and you also have a pretty talent-loaded backcourt, guys handling the basketball a lot, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You also have Josh Giddey. And so Tre Mann, just there weren't enough minutes to go around for him to get out there on the court. But really talented guy. And so now you take a chance on somebody who is just turned 23 years old like 5 days ago. Happy belated, Trey. Welcome to Charlotte. Tre Mann comes here and can be that guy off of the bench that provides some backcourt depth that this team has desperately needed for quite some time. And Micic can do the same thing. And no, he's not a great shooter. He's an older player that's only played this year in the league at 30 years of age. But Micic is a good passer. He looks to attack and then get others involved. So I like the fact that they have some backcourt depth. And Bertans, if you're a true Hornets fan and you watched this Hornets team a couple of years ago, you know that Bertans didn't miss. No, just didn't miss. And it was like 32 points in 29 2019, and then like it just, he is ridiculous when he plays the Hornets. Now that you don't have to worry about him anymore, good deal. I like getting the second round picks in return too. So look, talent wise, Gordon Hayward, you're probably settling for something like 50 cents on the dollar, something like that. But we know that that's not the only picture with Gordon Hayward. Like the availability is a big deal, and he hasn't played more than 50 games any season that he's played here with the Charlotte Hornets. So you risk him leaving for nothing, and that didn't happen today. You got 2 second-round picks. You got somebody in Trey Mann. That's a young reclamation project worth seeing what happens there. I like that trade given the context with what was surrounding Gordon Hayward.
And now to the deal that did not get made. Miles Bridges using his bird rights to veto any trade Charlotte may have sought. So I guess as a fan or somebody who covers a team and cares about the team, how do you balance how you feel here? Whereas Miles Bridges probably could have gotten a good return, but now you have the chance to keep him long term, and the guy just scored 86 points within 48 hours.
This one is complicated, and it's not even so much so with the off-the-court stuff, with Miles Bridges missing 82 games last year, the entire season, and the first 10 because of a felony domestic violence arrest that he eventually pled no contest to. That's something worth talking about in its own right. The basketball stuff is also pretty complicated. When you talk about him agreeing to a qualifying offer that he only agreed to because of the off-the-court issue, that qualifying offer allows Miles Bridges to say, no, thank you. I don't want to go to that franchise. And he gets to pick where he's traded. He has the right to veto, and he'll hit unrestricted free agency this offseason. So with that being said, the talent is pretty clearly better than the $8 million that he's earning on this qualifying offer. So with the Phoenix Suns or the Dallas Mavericks, both teams reportedly interested in Miles, it was always going to be, we want him at $8 million for the rest of this season, but do we want him at, say, $20 million for a 3-year contract, whatever, if we have the inside track at signing him again? Not really. We want to capitalize on this window. Then Miles Bridges scores back-to-back 40 burgers, and he comes back saying, nope, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm going to stay right here in Charlotte. And to be fair, he's been saying that the entire time. How do I feel about it? I think the basketball situation, he's good offensively. I think there's a lot to be desired defensively. My biggest worry is if we're going to really move on, like if the Charlotte Hornets are really looking to turn the page on what was the old core, you get rid of a lot of guys. PJ Terry, Gordon Hayward, that's a big deal. But is it okay to bring back LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, who I think most Hornets fans want, Nick Smith Jr., some of the younger players that, we'll see what they develop into, and then Miles? Is that just too much of the core after having only reached the play-in tournament in previous seasons? That's my biggest question, and I don't know how much Miles helps you defensively either. So for me, I would have liked to have explored what Miles could bring back on the open market, but Miles has that right to veto, and he's staying here in Charlotte. I bet it looks like the Hornets are going to try to re-sign him this offseason.
Yeah, and you're right on. I mean, this is obviously a retool, a rebuild around LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, maybe Mark Williams. But how concerned are you at this present moment about the prolonged absences and injuries to Ball and to Williams?
Yeah, I'm really worried. I'm worried about both of them. We can start with LaMelo. So LaMelo's ankles have been a problem, I guess, for the last year and a half now. And if he's coming back and then he hadn't played in a while now because, they are saying that he's sore, he just can't go out there, then that's a real bummer because he hasn't shown enough rehabilitation to sustain long-term basketball play after some of these injuries, right? Like he only played, 17 games once he came back after, missing so much time this offseason. And LaMelo's ankles are a real concern. Mark Williams' lower back injury is also a real worry, too, because here's somebody that the Hornets finally got to protect the rim and did a pretty good job at it. I think at the beginning of this season, there was a little, there was some things there to be desired, his rebounding, not playing as physically. But overall, I believe in Mark Williams. I think he's going to be a good player, smart. You can't teach 7 foot and 9'9" wingspan and standing reach. It was ridiculous. 9'9" standing reach, 7'7" wingspan. Like a big dude that's smart. But man, the lower back contusion that then turns just into a lower back injury. I've said it this way: we never get good news on Mark. We haven't gotten it since he's been injured. He comes back, gets banged up, has to go back and sit down. And it used to be doubtful. We used to get questionable designations, and we haven't gotten good news since. And it looks like they might be trying to avoid surgery. Like, I don't know. He just is never ready, and that's a bad sign. When you think he's going to ramp up and he still can't go, we just never get good news, and that's unfortunate.
All right, we got about 2 or 3 minutes, Walker, and I'm glad you brought this up on Locked On Hornets this morning, because I was thinking about it last night. We think that Mitch Kupchak is gone, right? And he goes out in a blaze of glory. Steve Clifford got here as, basically like, hey, can you just come help us out? And then Miles Bridges a week later gets arrested. And then for the last 2 years, this team has been blown up by injuries and is now actually blown up by trades. Do you think Steve Clifford has a shot to stick around under new ownership?
I do, and I didn't. If you would have asked me this probably a week ago, I would have said no. I don't think so. But now I do, and I think a lot of that has to do with the player relationships, Nick. If you think about Miles Bridges, the wording coming out from Adrian Wojnarowski, who was the guy that really led us to this idea that Miles is going to veto any trade that might be out there for him. And the wording there was the relationship with the coach. So, okay, if this guy is on an expiring qualifying offer, then why would the relationship with the coach matter when it comes to figuring out where he's going to play basketball for the next 5 years or whatever you may deem his future to look like? I think that might be because they're considering keeping Steve Clifford. I do think that he's got a close relationship with LaMelo. Steve Clifford does. You've heard LaMelo say, glowing things about his head coach and Steve Clifford. So Miles, LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and even Nick Smith Jr., Nick. Like, I had a chance to talk with NSJ yesterday, and he said Steve Clifford is the best coach he's ever had. And this is coming from somebody that wants to be coached hard. He talked about how, there's some times where Steve Clifford gets mad at me, but he said also, Coach Clifford is the best coach that I've ever had. So if the core that you want to keep intact all respects Steve Clifford and he hasn't lost the locker room like that, then there's a good shot that he actually comes back. And the last thing I'll say, I was talking with Jake Fisher about this, who reports on the NBA with Yahoo Sports, and he said there was some uncertainty still left around Steve Clifford. And he did say, we are kind of, thinking Mitch Kupchak will be out and they'll move on to a different GM. When I first heard that, I was like, oh, no, they're gonna change everything. That's not gonna happen. But now, as we see these reports, as we come to know the relationships that he does have with the players, Nick, I do think there's a shot that Steve Clifford is back as the head coach.
What a heck of a day it was for Walker Mehl. Rest the voice, walk the dogs, feed the fish, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Will do. I'll do it all. I still have a busy day. I appreciate it.
You got it.